Thanks for the intro, Palak, again. And scaling up, as you rightly said, it's an interesting topic. Mostly, there are a lot of topics on startups. How do you start your business? And that's called sexy. But I think scaling up has been sexy for me too, because I have worked the last 5 years in scaling up. And that's what we will try to discuss today. It's what makes or breaks your company. Scaling up is what makes and breaks your company. Basically, you can start up, you can have a good product, you have gone to customers, you have acquired customers, but if you don't scale up, then you probably are not going to make it, right? There's no point getting into scaling without scaling up. So I just wanted to start with this to understand what we are getting into today, right? So everyone wants to scale up, but if we are trying to scale up a mouse to an elephant, it would somewhere burst, right? So I just want to say that there is no harm caused to any animal in making this. And apologies if I hurt any sentiments in that. But anyway, so this tells us, so the topic of the day comes, this sets our agenda basically, that how to avoid this scenario for our businesses. That's what I want to discuss majorly in our presentation, that while scaling up is important for every business, which basically anyone starts, but this is what we need to avoid. We don't want our companies to shut down. We don't want our companies to not grow and plateau. So scaling up is an important lever, but then we need to understand what actually scaling up is. In case there are other people on video, it will be great seeing someone nodding also. We'll ask others to also join. So this is my first question. It can be, I think people can put it on chat. The question is, which company has scaled the best way? There are 4 graphs. Each of the graphs shows how the company has risen their sales over the period of time. X-axis is time, Y is the revenue. So if I can have few options on chat, that whichever people choose as per them is the best company which has scaled up the best way. Any options? I can't see the options probably, so I'll need Palak to help me out. What people are responding? Excuse my.
Some of them are saying Zomato. Some say D.
Zomato. Where is Zomato?
There is no option as Zomato or Zerodha.
Out of these 4 graphs, A, B, C, D is what we want to understand.
So Vishal says C. Tavish says B. Devojit says D. Aryan says D.
Okay.
We have 2 Ds, 1 B, 1 C.
Good. So at least we have varied options and people can choose.
Abhishek again says D. Shareen says C. Lalita says A. So it's a mix.
That's good. And I see B and D are the favorites. So looks good. But these are real life companies. This is not something that I made up or sketched. I'm bad at that. So these are real life companies, and these are the companies, and this is the real data of these companies. So A is Flipkart. Different categories I've chosen. B is Freshworks, which is a SaaS. C is Balaji Wafers, and D is Mankind Pharma. Now, can we as a group decide, or can you think that, or can you say that this is the best scale? Because all 4 are leaders in what they're doing. So you can't really pinpoint that no, Flipkart has scaled the best or Freshworks has scaled the best. Every company is scaling as per their strategy or their market need or their understanding of what their vision is. So that's what the whole session, or most of the session, I will look at, and we'll take it also on pointers of how to do it for your organization. I see a lot of people are from the corporate background who are working right now, but I'm sure many of you aspire to be entrepreneurs. Some will also apply to you while you're working in your organizations. But I think you will get a fair idea of where we are going to see ourselves if we are going to do an entrepreneurship or start something of our own and try to scale it up. Now, for today, this is what we'll focus on, this red box for each of the companies. Now, if you see this, you can see it very clearly. Every company has a different period of scale. Every company has not scaled up for 2 or 3 years. Some have scaled up. So for example, Mankind Pharma took 8 years to scale to a certain position. Freshwork took 3 years, Flipkart 2.5 years, Balaji Vapors probably only 2 years. But when did it come? For Balaji Vapors, it probably came after 20 years. For Mankind Pharma, it probably came after 6 years. So this is what scaling up is all about. Scaling up is, we'll get to that, but scaling up is dependent on your company, the rate of scaling up, the time of scaling up. And founders need not replicate these. Your founders need to try to understand what your company is bringing on, what your vision is, and how do you get to apply that. So basically, what is scaling up? So we need to understand that. While we know that it's growth in some sense, but scaling up for different companies will mean differently. Some company will only see it as business growth or revenue growth. Some companies will see that my operating expenditure growth has to be lower than my growth of revenues. Some companies will see that I need to get myself ready, so I need to get funding. So funding, many people say funding is my scaling up. If I fund more, I'll be able to scale up. And some companies see that if I sustain a growth rate of, let's say 30%, 40%, that's what is my scaling up. So there's no one definition of scaling up. It's entirely up to the companies to understand what they need to do to scale up, what the best scaling up style is for them. We'll discuss some style coming forward. I'll try to give some examples of R&D, for example, where I'm working. For me, number 2, higher growth of revenues than operating expenditure. That's probably the place which we have decided that works for us. My expenditures growth needs to be lower than my growth of revenues. And I'll at the end, we'll take a case on my company and what we have done in the last 5 years. Whatever we discuss, we'll try to summarize with that. So this is what I want to make sure that it's not only about revenue growth. You cannot say that scaling up is only revenue. It's not that. And for when you say that, okay, if it's not that, then what should I be doing? Should I be following the likes of Flipkarts and the Freshworks or the Balaji Wafers or Mankind? What should I do? So it has its own variables, what we have to look at, but mostly scaling up is categorized, or there are buckets you can put scaling up into. There are 4 buckets. Now each bucket can have 10 more styles into it. But there are 4 buckets broadly where your startup or a scale up will fit into. Now, if you talk about hustle growth, that's the first kind of bucket. In this bucket, you are a fresh startup, you're trying to get your product market fit, and you put in X effort or X money and you don't know what the result is going to be, but you know that I want to hustle, I want to achieve something. So that's the hustle growth part. You only put in your effort, you only put in your money, you don't know what the output is. So that's the kind of scale up after getting initial product market fit. I'm not saying product market fit is not required. It is the base of, after that only the scaling up starts. But hustle growth is basically you put in X amount of money. I'm not sure what I'm going to get, but I'm aiming to be higher on market share and higher on revenues. The next bucket is classic scale up. Classic scale, as you can guess from the title itself, that it's more bookish, more traditional, that I fund my own scale up. So I have a stable business. I have probably reached a place where I have my delivery, my distribution planned out, my processes planned out. I want to now, I know that if I put X, I'll probably get Y, which is higher than X. Now in hustle, we don't know if the Y is higher or lower. But in classic scale up, I know if I put X, I'll get Y, which is higher than X. So that's the classic scale up, which most traditional businesses do, and also the likes of Zoho or Zerodha, who have funded themselves and they've gone slow on doing that. If you follow their story, you'll understand what traditional classic scale up is. The third is fast scaling. Now, fast scaling is all about gaining market share. Even if you have a low quality product, if it means that I have to sacrifice my quality, not the product market fit, that's a given. I'm saying quality, you don't improve upon. Even if it means I have to only run after, it's basically running after speed to get market share in whatever ways. Now, the classic example I can think about is Cred. Cred did not have, it just had one product. They are still on the part of scaling up, but I think they are developing slowly and they're trying to just gather market share that they can, right? So that's fast scaling. Blitz scaling is about global or world dominance. I just need the full pie and I need to pump in money, and I just need the full pie. So White Hat Junior probably is the best example in this blitz scaling. There in 3 years, the founder founded it, blitz scaled it, and has already exited, right? So White Hat Junior probably the best example, and Uber also. But I think that's called blitz scaling. Now, each of these categories will have separate nuances of doing it. Okay, it's not that this is the only formula for it, but these are the 4 buckets largely. And these are all very much dependent on your variables, which are market size or a distribution. What gross margins do you have? So I'll not try to read this through, but I'll try to say, for example, in R&D, we'll always again fall up in a classic scale up model where we are funding our own growth, where we know that what X is, and if I put X, Y is what I get. And for me, since we will be taking R&D as a example later on, now R&D has a big market size. We are a pharma company, by the way. R&D Laboratories is a pharma company. So the market size big, right? India, we are catering to India, big market. Distribution, we have distribution, but it's manpower dependent, right? That's one plus or minus, you can call it. Gross margins are high, virality low, because it's a pharma, you promote to doctors, it's not viral like Cred or Zerodha or a White Hat Junior. Cash, internally funded, that's a plus. Regulatory, yes, very much. Government regulations change, pharma scenario changes. Luck, we're still figuring it out, but we've been lucky with COVID since we are in pharma. So that industry hasn't degrown at least. So you can see these variables you can select your company of what variables mean for me. And then you can go to the next thing of how, the problem of how to do it, right? So how to scale up? As I said earlier, there has to be a product market fit or a business model, else please do not think of scaling up before that. Your product market fit, it means, what does a product market fit? If I have to just say it in a word, you must have paying customers, at least a few, right? If you are in a SaaS business, you have a couple of accounts. If you are in the FMCG business, you have few regions, markets where your product sells. If you are in pharma, you have some this thing, e-commerce. You have a few hundreds of engaged customers who buy from you regularly. That's sort of a product market or a business model. Without a business model, there is no scale up, period. Then we have option of then you know that, then you have to understand which growth stage you are in. So there are only these 3 scenarios. Please note again, only in these 3 scenarios, please proceed for scaling up. Otherwise, you have work to do. Your business has to have a high margin, positive cash flow, and can be profitable, not profitable. This scenario is okay. Low margin, positive cash flow, not profitable is still okay. You have positive cash flows. You can think of scaling up. You can probably have economies of scale. Low margin can turn into high margin later on. And the third one is low margin, negative cash flows, but high growth. This is what most startups are working at, and most startups get funded because of high growth. They still have low margins, they still have negative cash flows, but there is high growth and they're not profitable yet, but they still get funded, and you can still scale up because you have high growth, you have probably a big market share, a big market to cater to. So there is chance of scaling up. Any other scenario, please rethink your model, please rethink your product market fit, and then approach scale up. Now, after understanding these, you have to understand which business you fall in. Is it a tech-led, a technology-led, or is it a traditional one? What is a traditional one? Is the second point. Is it inventory-based? Do you carry inventory of what you are doing? Or is it a service, professional service, consulting service, any kind of service that you're providing, or even Urban Clap will fall under professional service. Inventory based, FMCG, pharma, D2C, everything is inventory based. Tech based, SaaS, ed tech. So which business do you fall in? Right now, inventory based will have a very good economies of scale. If you can scale up, your margins will improve immediately. So that's a plus about having a traditional inventory based business. But having a traditional professional service business, do you want to scale up? I would say, I don't know, because scale up is directly proportional to people cost. You need to have people. Professional services cannot happen without people. So you need to understand, do you really want to scale up when you have a professional service or a consulting business? Well, that's what we'll discuss. And probably with this, when investor asks us how to plan to scale, we'll have a better answer than this girl has. Palak, any questions as of now if you want to take?
Yes, Samrit, fantastic till now. I think I'm gaining a lot, if not anybody else. But we do have some questions. I'll start from Uday. Right. Uday asks, can the existing market share affect the way of you scaling up?
See, market share is just one indicator, right? For example, if you take a pharma, I'll take an example of pharma, right? Now, pharma, if I showed you the graph of Mankind Pharma, right? I don't want to go back to the presentation, but the Mankind Pharma, the turnovers will be in tens of thousands of crores. But it has a market share of single digit in pharma industry. The top 50 players only make up top 50, I'm not saying 5, top 50 players make up only 55% or I think 60% of the pharma industry. So market share is not always a gauge of if you're trying to scale up. Market share is the result rather. If you scale up, you will probably get to a market share level where your industry has 10 players, 15 players, and what is a leadership market share, you'll understand. And that's a gauge which comes later on, but not during scale up. Scale up, you need product market fit. Is the product there to be scaled up? Is my business model ready? And then we'll get to on how to do it. But then, yeah, we are ready for scale up. I don't think it market share effects as of now.
Uday, if you do have a follow-up question, you can probably unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, I'm open to, yeah.
Until then, I'm moving on to Tavish's question. Tavish asks, what will be a more acceptable way to scale up for a small level enterprise with limited funds and a narrow market share?
Limited.
With limited funds and a narrow market share. Yeah.
So I think I'll cover that very descriptively when I get to R&D labs, where I work at, and if you come, the next part of the presentation belongs to what exactly your question, how we can probably get into that limited funds and narrow market share. The how part will cover this. I think I'll be repetitive if I cover it right now.
So Tavish, we can probably wait a little longer.
Yeah, definitely. And after that, if it doesn't answer, then we'll again come back to Tavish.
So Lalita asks, the second way of scaling up that is low margin and negative cash flow and no profit. How do they benefit? Any example?
You're
of
saying
scaling
it is
up with low margin and negative cash flow. That is no profit.
Yeah, so exactly, low margin and negative cash flow and not profitable. So the likes of Flipkart, any fast blitz scaling startups, any blitz scaling startups. So that's why there is a caveat. It has to be high growth and probably a big market. Any of the startups will cater to a big market, but what I'm trying to say is it has to be a high growth startup. Even only then you will able to still scale is because you'll get funding for that, right? I'll give you an example. Flipkart, you take example of any e-commerce startups, even White Hat Junior for that example, they did not have positive cash flows, right? So there is a chance, because you are scaling so fast and gaining the market share so fast, that at some point of time you hope that you will be able to get it, the cash flow into positive, and your margins will improve, and you'll turn profitable. All the startups, anyone in the blitz scaling space, if you understood the 4 buckets, anyone in the blitz scaling space is growing because of this third category is for them, right?
So for them, it's the growth that matters then. Sorry, Palak.
No, please.
Yeah, there is growth and the market size.
Okay.
If it's a very niche,
the cash flow.
Yeah, if it is a very niche product, then probably this model will not work. But if it's a market size, big market size, and your last 2 years or a 1 year or 6 months, you've been growing like crazy, yeah, this model still makes you scale up if your product market and business model is there.
So say, for example, I can expect, like, if I fall under the third category of negative cash flow and no profit and no low margin. So, but then the growth is there. So perhaps in terms of VC or like say investors or funds, in that way, I can have a upper hand as compared
so
to
see if I understand, there's some confusion between scale up and only funds. That's why we are trying to differentiate both of them. Scaling up has to bring in more revenues. It's more revenue oriented. Funds will help you get those revenues, right? So, but these two are connected. If you don't have funds, you cannot scale up, right? So funds, so the third category will ensure, or you'll probably have better chance of raising funds and still trying to scale up. You may go bust. I mean, there's big chance of going bust. 95% businesses go bust, but you will still get a chance to scale up. You can try to scale up. That's what I'm trying to say. These 3 categories are the only categories where you try to scale up. Don't try to scale up without this.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope I answered it.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
One question from Debojit. Debojit, would you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Yeah, Amrut, very engrossing session till now. I was very interested with this category of companies which do fast scaling. Fred is a great example of that, which you mentioned also. According to you, what is the viewpoint? I mean, what's the benefit of this type of scale up? Because from my perspective, it's more risk than benefits, but some organizations are still following it. What's your perspective there?
See, I am a limited risk averse person. So if you ask me a personal opinion, I'll probably say that's a space where it's fool's gold. So it can work probably 1 or 2% or 3% times, but most of the time you may not find success. So I think that those companies take up a huge amount of risk, and probably they get funding, or they get in case of Cred, it's because of the credibility of Kunal, the founder, whom he's been able to gather funds even before a business model was set. So if you take Cred specifically, it has a huge risk. But I think people love the pace, how he has gone ahead. And the third category is all about pace. So I want to only get a market share and customers. I don't look at any other metrics. That's the third scale. Fast scaling. Fast scaling is only market share and customers. If I put X, fine. If I put Y, fine. I don't care about what I put and what I get. But I need to definitely need to get market share and customers. After that, probably I'll and the quality, what I said, in fast scaling, the quality is less important. So after getting this, I'll try to get my product to the best of quality and everything and change up to a profitable venture later on. But fast scaling is all about, or what Cred is doing is all about, getting their customers as early as possible.
But they must be showing a plan on paper, right? That this is a revenue.
Definitely. Yeah, they must have. There has to be a story. I mean, we'll get to that. The next slide comes to that. You need to carry a V or a vision. You need to have that vision and sell that. And founders, I think for most of the founders, the full-time job is fundraising while they still work at their own startups. So I think they definitely need to have a vision, and I'm sure they're not just going around flapping their wings that wherever I get funds from and I put it. There is a proper process to it, and it's not bad. I mean, all four are categories of scaling up. So you can't say this is good, this is only bad, or this is. So you can only choose, this is good for me, or this is not good for me.
Okay.
Amrut, I'll take two more questions before we jump on to the next section. Abhishek wants to ask. Abhishek, would you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Yeah. Hi, Amrut.
Hi, Abhishek.
Hope everybody is safe and doing good in your family.
We too. I too hope the same.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is that what should be the correct approach to scale up the business in B2B or B2C category with a limited market size? If company is new, is coming with a new business module, and competition is very huge in there in a market.
Right. So B2B and B2C both you want to know.
Yeah.
Okay. So so I think if you look at this slide that we are in,
yeah,
B2C will be much more inventory based, and B2C will be a
correct.
Right.
Yes, it is inventory based business, B2B or B2C.
And you said, if I understand, the market size is less.
Very less, and competition is also there. Consider like another competitor is there in market for a long period of time, and just coming with the new things. So what should be the approach there?
So if you can also add some more light into it, do you fall in any of these three categories of high margin, low margin, and cash flows?
Yes, it is low margin, and a positive cash flow, and not profitable.
Good.
Second one.
Good. So then you have to follow, as per my understanding, the classic scale up is your only option. If I was personally looking into that, there could be caselets or nuances in that scale up, but I think you still have to understand the variables in this market, what you have. This is the slide for you, and do not try to, because fast scaling, blitz scaling do not work in niche markets.
It would be the blunder, right?
It does not work. It does not work in niche markets. Please don't try it. Please don't burn your cash. So classic scale up is your only scale up with a mix of hustle growth. And how to do it, probably once we get on the next slides, you will be able to find some more answers.
Yeah, definitely.
Otherwise, I'll be jumping the gun answering your question.
No, please go for the next.
Sure.
Thanks.
There was one more. Welcome.
We'll take the next question maybe after the section, given the time limit.
Sure.
So maybe
the last we discussed, where we was trying to understand where our startup fits, as Abhishek, if I'm right, I got him right. He asked that he knows now where his startup is fitting into this stages. What stage is it, and what kind of business is it? Right now, we want to understand how to do it, or should we even do it, whatever it is. So once we know that this is the startup that I am into, this is my business, the next big step, or the next most critical step, is to have a vision for your business. You need to contextualize your scale. You cannot scale, for example, if I take Abhishek's question and take it forward here, you cannot say this is a niche market and I want full market, or I don't know what I want and I want to scale up. It's a tough market. I can't do that. you're not going to scale up. You have to have a vision that I want this percentage of market share, or this amount of revenue, or this number of customers. You need to have that data to make this decision, right? So you need all the data that you require. Revenues, market shares, what is the industry like? What are the economies of scale there? Is there any unit economics or not? You need to understand that fact very clearly. So first, when you have got a product market fit, please get down, take a couple of months, gather all your data, draft out a vision with your founders, co-founders, or key team players, whoever it is. That too is what you will have to work for the next 5 years or 10 years, or whichever it is, whatever vision you set. It is very critical. Without that, you are just an headless chicken. You'll just be going around thinking that I'll put in this X amount of money, try to get Y and all that. Don't do that. Skip. Put the vision out, contextualize the scale, then work on it. While preparing to do that, after that stage is over, while preparing to do that, understand your unit economics very clearly. In a niche business, how much cost per acquisition is customer acquisition? What is the channel that I'm using? What kind of revenues am I going to understand? What is the click-through rate if I go in digital way? So unit economics of your business model has to be very clear, and the vision that you have created, you need to align your goals to that now. So this helps a big time. And then while you already have the data of what is your risks, what is working and not working, so you know your limitations. So all this comes under what I say, this is my personal model. It's plan, execute, learn, execute. I call it Pele. Sports and films are what I relate to a lot. So you kind of use that. I'm sure you guys must be seeing that in my presentation somewhere, but generally I try to take some analogies from these two fields. So plan, execute, learn, execute is a strategy which you guys or anyone starting up, or me myself, have used it, and to some extent it's good. So I'm sharing what I have done well, is what I'm trying to share. So here, if you understand, execute comes twice, and for execution you need to have a bigger boat, so to say. You need to prepare. So your plan has to understand that at scale, what I need to do from now. If you think that I'll scale up in 6 months, then you have only 6 months to prepare. If you think I need to scale up now, you don't have time to prepare. You have not prepared. So you need to probably take some time and plan that preparation. Your strategy of how you're going to scale is going to include everything, starting from technology. That's a big platform nowadays, a big lever nowadays. Your technology and processes need to be very crystal clear. You need to invest in them. You need to invest in people. Let's say you want to scale your operations, as Abhishek's example again, that I need to scale my operation to this niche category. You may not do it alone, right? So you'll need somebody in B2B. If you are a B2B business, you'll need people going to your customers, or you need a digital marketing expert. Now you'll think that probably I'll handle it all myself, but scale up doesn't work like that. You need to invest in people. Then money, you cannot scale up without money. You cannot invest in technology. A ERP platform or a SaaS platform will require upfront 10 lakh rupees of developing the platform for you probably. Where are you going to get that? So money raising, that, as I said earlier, founder's full-time job, and he needs to get on with that along with working on his startup. Partners, this will mean distributors. What kind of distributors or third-party logistic players will you require who will take on your scale operations? Marketing and brand, invest in marketing and brand. Niche products, definitely invest in marketing and brand. You have no other place to go to without that. And the final thing which has really worked for any organization I have been part of is delegation and autonomy. While you set up everything, and if you're still micromanaging, and if your people don't get that autonomy of taking decisions and working, I think the scale up plan is going to get incomplete, right? So these are the broad areas which you need to look at. But even after doing that, scale up is not 100%. You need to execute that. And that is very, very important. Execution will mean that you execute and get results. So that's why, and then any scale up has to learn from the field. No scale up plan is perfect. You think you have planned out, I'll go and achieve that. There is gonna be failures. 101% you are going to fail or face some kind of hindrances of roadblocks. So you need to learn quickly, churn quickly, and fix things iteratively, and then execute again. Execution is the key. There's no way without that. Right? So this that's a little bit more verbose. I just want to understand, make you understand, taking my company's example. So this is R&D. We are a pharma company. You can see I've given you, this is 2015 scenario, the reality then. Growth, if you can see, has flattened out for the last 3 years. Scale up throttled. We had scaled up, started scaling up, but we somehow plateaued. New products or divisions were not performing. Attrition was at 30%. And pharma is very much has a lot of government regulations. So there were, in 2015, the biggest hit to regulation happened with a lot of combinations were banned and all that. So this is what the scenario at 2015 was. And we had already scaled up. You can see that from third year, there was an upscale and we are on that path. So what do we do as a founder? When you're there, you have already found a product market fit, right? Because that's where you are getting paying customers. You are profitable. So this is the stage where you need to find your data, your company's data. Is there a vision? R&D did not. Is there good sales processes? R&D had average ones. Do you have the recent tech to support your people? R&D did not. Do you have good decision making? MIS system sucked that time. HR processes in place? No, we did not. Finance, great finance. We were already making money. We were debt free by the 7th, 8th year. Team, the founding team was still around. Probably not used properly. Product, good product, could be better. This is what we had. We deep dived into this. You need to do it for your business. What all variables are you ticking? Red, yellow, green, whatever is the color you like and understand, go to that. Do it. 5 years, or let's say 3 years, in fact. 6 years, in fact, 5 to 6 years, and this is where we at, right? So this has not happened because we were able to think that okay, koi nahi, 3 saal, we have done 3 years with okay sales. Let's put in more money, we'll get result, or let's just go to the customers and understand what they think. You need to first understand what your company is doing, find those data very, very much honestly, and figure out what your vision is. So we put a vision in place, very clear. It brought about a cultural change. Sales processes, I think it's a work in progress. I think sales process need to develop. I think it's still work in progress for us. We got the new techs, we had ERP systems, we had sales effectiveness tracking systems for our on-field people, for our managers, for our marketing team. MIS was strengthened considerably since we invested in tech. HR process, we hired a HR discipline, very broad-based in the sense to a good team, which put in place processes for HR. Finance, we kept it at the strong point that we had. In the team, we did changes of using those founders. The founders were all, I mean, they didn't know what to do now, right? So we then started them, you started using them as mentors, the founding team people, I'm saying, not just the founder. The founding team people were still around. So we started using them as mentors for the people we are getting in. That boosted their morale to work more. A product is still work in progress. We are trying to invest in there. Culture improved drastically. There was a need to grow. There was a need to win. Rewards and recognition. We started this initiative. This was not very much ingrained, did not happen with that much focus. Strategy was put in place from the vision. And also we hit some roadblocks like expansion into West Bengal and Maharashtra, and we are learning from it. Every company will learn from it. But I think we are back on track of scaling up, and I'm hoping that this graph just goes up and up. And this is just one caselet, right? You can always, you need to handle that truth. You can't say that, okay, I'll just do this and that. You have to have a process, find data, get onto it, what things can work, and invest time into it. It took us 5-6 years to scale up at this speed, and probably another decade to rise up. So that's one approach that you guys can use, and some pitfalls that you should avoid. This slide and the next is more about personal experiences, my personal experiences, and this is what you need to avoid, because you need to know the rule of your game, or the game the startup is. Please avoid scaling up too fast. Understand where your company is, market is, and avoid scaling up too fast. Lack of focus, as I said, you need a vision, so please avoid that. Hiring prematurely or late, both are problems. That's self-explanatory. Mistaking leadership for management. This is one of the top criteria where a lot of founders flounder, that they try to micromanage or get their heads into everything. You need to give your employees the delegation and autonomy to work. No long-term visions, and it's, I think, again, to pinpoint to the focus thing. Please don't say, okay, sir, I'll do everything for you, for the customer. Customer is God, but then you have to still run a company, right? So you have to somewhere say no to your customers, so that you are focused on what you're trying to do. Assuming marketing is not important, blunder. In most cases, then none. And believing that money is not, can be postponed, and I can only do it from my savings or your accruals. Great if you can do that, but most cases not. You'll need money of some sort. It may be your funds, it may be your VC's fund, it may be your father's fund. I don't know where, but you'll need money. So just don't pull it out from your paychecks from your current companies and keep putting here, but you'll need money somewhere to scale it up. Lack of scalable infra, set up that infra, take time, plan for your scale up. Don't just jump into it, and be agile to any kind of change. Finally, there is no secret ingredient. I'm sorry to say, you've heard me for 30 minutes and you must be disappointed probably, but there is no secret ingredient, and most of you will understand this. And in startups who are currently doing it or aspiring to it, do not get overburdened, or you don't get flummoxed by the thing that you are not able to scale up. There is always a way, but you need to find your secret ingredient. There is no fixed formula. Your formula will depend on how R&D's formula was. We got some formula right. You will have your formula. You can always reach out to Crackit team or myself to help you out, but I think the formula has to be yours. You have to deep dive in yourself. And there will be some more experiences on that, some more gyan if you want to listen to it. I have just put out those things. You can probably refer to them. But I think one of the key ones is that you cannot work in isolation. If you are a founder, you may be an introverted founder. Great, you have founded something great. But at the time of scale, either you get out and do it, and you have to come out of your isolation, and or you find someone who does it for you. And I have had experiences of few friends getting into this mode and they're suffering. But I just want to put it, there's nothing wrong in being an introvert, absolutely nothing. But at scale up, you'll need some level of coming out and doing it yourself with your team. And then that's my success mantra has been at R&D or NCED, that you have to keep your best people with you, no matter what cost you pay, not just in salaries or anything, but even if you have to sacrifice growth, please invest in people. If he's there with you for another 3 years, or she's there with you for another 5 years, probably she'll take you places that you have ever thought of. So that's from my personal opinion. And get a coach, get a mentor. That definitely will help. Platforms like Crackit or anyone, there should be something like that. It helps you grow immensely, right? And I think I'll just leave you with that may the force with you, be with you, and scale up. And for sustaining that growth, probably Palak will have another session on Crackhead on that somewhere. That's it from me, Palak, and we can have some questions if there are any.
Fantastic session, Amrut. I'm gaining a lot personally, and I'm sure we will be covering a lot of follow-up topics to this. Vishal wanted to ask something. Vishal, would you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Yeah, sure. So the question is on whether there are any platforms for investing in startups in India. So like as you know, common man can invest in public companies via stocks, and those are pretty liquid. You can sell, buy and sell. So whereas in terms of like startups, you might have to wait for your investment to get some benefits out of it. So in short, like, is there any way for a common man to invest in startups, or it's only a domain of like big venture capitalists?
So in common man, do you think it's a small ticket and large ticket? Because common man is the angel is also a common man, right? The angel investor.
Yeah. I'm not talking like in huge amounts, like in small amounts.
So small tickets, you're saying?
Yes.
Right. So there is none in India. The first answer. There are complexities to it, and it's not. It's a good one to approach if you want to explore this idea. Nothing bad about it. It's a good idea to explore. But I think there are a lot of regulatory problems, and also the startups really, because once you invest, you are a shareholder, right? Now companies have to disclose a lot of information to their shareholders, while angels and VCs, they sit in boardrooms and they are bound by NDAs. They can probably discuss and give ideas and do those things. When you bring the common man into it, there will be 10,000 people or 1 lakh people who all try to invest. You can't get them into one place and say that this is an NDA, you can't disclose. But I need to disclose to them as a company because they are now my shareholders. I think that's one area. If you think this platform should be there, you will have to think that how we can pass this area, because I don't think startups are going to give out their information to every common man or any small ticket item. So I think that this idea is interesting. There is none as of now. You can explore and see how you can get through some breakthrough you can get in this if you want to do it.
Thanks.
Good. Thank you, Vishal. Any
Ashok,
other?
would you be comfortable unmuting yourself?
Hi, I'm Narit and
Hi, Ashok.
Vijay and Palak, and I can see some more faces also. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my question actually has gone up. 1 minute.
No, you are audible. You are audible.
No, I want to know what exactly I asked.
Okay.
Okay, that was what are the factors that make or push any company to go for blitzscaling, preferably the mid-level companies? What are the market pressures?
So blitzscale is actually not for mid-level companies. If I have to be very honest in my answer, blitzscale is purely for dominance in the field that you have. I mean, mid-level company, I'm not sure what you mean by the exact word of mid-level company.
Below 100 crores.
So then probably the market has to be a 150 crore market. So if you understand blitzscale, the concept of blitzscale is that you go for dominance, right? For example, White Hat Junior probably has 80% of the coding edtech market, right? Then there are very small players which we don't know the name of. I don't maybe 1 or 2 people will know here, but I don't know. I don't think anyone knows the name of anyone else. So White Hat Junior is a classic example of blitzscale. It may be that market is only 150 crores as you're saying, or it is 1500 or 15,000 crores. But blitzscale is getting the max dominance in that market with whatever cost I have to pay. So if your market is 150 crores, then you need to understand what I have to do to get to that 150 crores, and you have to get to that 100 crores. So it can be a blitzscale, but generally blitzscale is used for bigger markets and bigger funds and bigger market share.
Right. Okay.
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
We also have Shivabrata who would want to ask a question.
Sure, sure.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, hi Shivabrata.
Hi. So first of all, thank you for explaining about scaling and all the various components and intricacies. It is really enlightening for me, being part of a startup, as I mean also as a social entrepreneur. So I have background both in startup as well as in the development sector. So basically, the point that I wanted to ask is about organizational culture. So, I mean, I have faced this in both sectors, both in non-profit sector as well as in the startup sector. So how do you ensure which are the components or principles of organizational culture for scaling? And how do you, I mean, identify, and also one thing you mentioned about changing the culture.
Right.
So because if a team has been working in suppose one pattern, how do you transform them to come to a scaling kind of approach? So if you can explain a little bit more.
Sure, sure. So I think you want to understand about how do you instill the culture.
Yeah.
And what was the second part? I'm sorry.
And also what are the, I mean, aspects of culture which are for scaling?
Right. So I think culture is not what you can inculcate just in a month or a year or something, but it has to have a process to inculcate. It's not that you can't do it. And the biggest element of that happens with 2 or 3 pillars. First pillar is your vision and communicating that vision to your employees. So for example, R&D, if I go back to the slide, I don't want to go back now, but probably if I go back to that slide, you will realize that in 2015, so that's already been about 10 years of founding. And there are people who are working there and plateaued and doing everything. But most small businesses or startups in that condition are more centrally controlled with their founder or business owners or anywhere. So the first step or any founder or business founder or business owner should do is have a vision and communicate that very clearly, crystally to their team. The second point is you have to delegate and give them autonomy. Most business owners, especially small MSME customers, are trying to be very hands-on. They want to manage and not lead. That's a very big difference. Most think that if I do an MBA, I become leader, but you're for a long period of time, you do management. And only then you graduate to be a leader, but that's more difficult for most people because they still manage. They try to manage. You don't have to manage, you have to give up. That's a difficult part for a very seasoned business owner to do. I understand. But these two things is going to bring, and the third is the communication, as I said, having a vision, communicating it very clearly, and then giving the autonomy to them to act on their own. You have to believe in them that they will do the job that is given because you have communicated and shown them a vision. It's an chicken and egg story. If you don't want to start with any or just one and you say that I'll do it later or whichever, it has to start with vision, and you can do the other two, and only then you will probably be able to do it over a period of time. It will not be in a year. It took us 2-3 good years to change that mindset, especially with our sales force. And I'm sure it can happen because it has happened in many cases, many cases.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Siva brother. Thank you. I hope I answered some part of it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
One last thing, I think there's one last question from Devojit, which I'll take at the end. But before that, I remember Tavish, is your question?
Yes, Tavish.
Is your question answered?
Was I able to say, understand, or you were able to understand the question, the answer? The slides, I think we are not getting a response from him.
Yes. So he's written in the chat box. Yes, I got
Great. Thank you, Tavish. That's a relief.
So last question from Devojit. unless there are more questions that we can probably take.
I just want to say, state one more thing. I think I missed out on Sivabrata, and I missed out on a few other while I was presenting. The vision, well, we have spoken about vision a lot. I think the vision has to be a little long term. Please don't plan your vision for 3 years or 2 years. That's not called a vision. That's probably a goalpost or a mission. So please plan out your vision at least, I'll say 7 to 10 year range. It should be your vision. Even a 5-year vision is a short vision. You can still go with a 5 years. That's probably the minimum of a vision timeline. Yeah, Devo.
One question.
Yeah, Amrut, very interesting 1 hour till now, and we just touched 8 o'clock now, and therefore maybe this is the last one. But maybe a little more personal, and for the audience here, Amrut and I are from the same college where we spent 2 wonderful years together, but the next decade has been very different, and therefore a whole lot of experiences that has been in our journey.
Right.
If I ask you a personal question, how do you define success yourself, for yourself in your startup? What makes you feel that yes, I'm successful or I'm not when you're working for yourself? Along with that, if I can add, you also said it's important to have mentors. How do you choose your mentors? Because there are a whole lot of options available, both within organizations, paid, unpaid. You meet a lot of people. How do you really choose your mentors?
Right. Good, tough questions. First one, if I answer the first one, what success mean to us? So there will be 2 parts of my success. One is a personal success, and the one is a professional success, probably. Professional one being more important because if I'm running a company or a show or any startup, I need to ensure that people who believe in me, who are working with me, giving everything they are with me, they need to be taken care of. So if every month or every year or every day I'm able to take care of them, they feel and totally understand that they are growing in their careers, I think I have found success, irrespective of how fast I'm scaling up or how slow I'm scaling up. I think that's been my understanding in the last, especially in the last 5 years. You have to keep up their belief of working with you, and then they will give everything to you. And the second is, personally, I think you need to be satisfied with what kind of scale or company you are running. You cannot, while you need to be ambitious, but you cannot kick yourself every time you are not able to do anything. So you need to be really open to learnings, open to your limitations, and whatever you get is the best outcome you can get. If you are given your best, you got your best. So you have your piece that I'm achieving what I've given best, and that's I think good success for me. That's a good definition of success to me. I give my best, I get my best, and that's what I should think it's the best for me. So that's one thing, but keep on being ambitious. So the next best has to be a little better best, probably. Second part was, how do you choose a mentor? A tricky one. I have had a couple in my career. First part, in my corporate, I've had a mentor who is a friend now, or more a friend now. Now, in the early part of my entrepreneurship journey, I have had one mentor, and right now I'm not having a mentor, very sadly. But no, I think choosing a mentor has to be a function of 2 things. One is, your mentor cannot be, in my case, I don't think a mentor should be from a very different industry of yours. Then you are basically looking at a counselor and then a mentor. Okay, so your mentor has to be or have some experience of that industry. Then your mentorship is really strong, or you really gain, because mentorship is just not one way. You don't absorb only, you also give it back to him, say, in the sense of learning from each other. He also learns a dime or 2 from you. So I think mentorship, you need to choose your mentor who has had some experience of the kind of work you're doing. And the second is, who probably has the same kind of values that you have, because your startup also shows or spreads the kind of values that you believe in, and you cannot really grow without you making peace with your values and your startup. So, and that mentor has to also share at least a few of them or most of them, whichever is the best case. So I think these two criteria are very important. So your mentor can come from anywhere, your past, your friends, your past corporate life, your education life, wherever. But I think these two criteria is what I look at when I'm choosing a mentor. The rest, everything can be, I think, people or person, any other qualities, I think it's global and you will be able to understand. But these two are very critical for me choosing a mentor.
Thanks, Amrut. Little contradictory in the first bit, where one of the great leaders I have followed personally, Steve Jobs,
Right.
used to say about his employees in the first answer that you gave, that if you want to make people happy, better sell ice cream.
Right.
And you mentioned about the fact that I take my happiness from the fact that my employees, I'm able to take care of my employees. So yeah, do you think both these styles kind of can coexist, or you have to kind of have only one kind of style to be successful?
No, I see. I mean, different. That was my personal experience, as I said. But different styles or different companies, different. So, see, startups are again, it's what your values are. I'll again say, if Steve Jobs did not inculcate his values into Apple, probably Apple would not have grown to what it has. So maybe his values are that way. I'm no way to say, no place to say that Steve Jobs was wrong. I'll probably go to hell for that. But I think it was his values, his understanding of what he was trying to do. He was trying to change the world. Probably I'm not. So maybe there is a difference of that. But generally for me, this has worked. And I've been able to bring change in my organization. Maybe if probably I am trying to go global or somewhere else to other states in India to scale up very fast, maybe things may change. But as of now, I think this has really helped me a lot and really kept me in a place that I feel success is real almost every day.
Thanks, Amrut. Wonderful session today. Palak, if I can take your permission to announce the next session, which is coming up next Saturday. We have Ritika with us, a senior HR professional from the HR fraternity. She's currently working in Cvent. She'll be talking on emerging careers and how you can link your passion to the emerging careers that are coming up. So, very interesting topic. We'll take that up next Saturday. And Amrut, thank you. It's been a pleasure hearing you for almost more than an hour after a long time. And
Yeah.
I'm actually
Same here.
Yeah, pleasantly surprised that I absolutely loved it. And it was an amazing.
I can undoubtedly say that Debo was probably the best presenter we had in our marketing batch. And to come from him that I did do something good, I think I've done good to go to SPJMR with Debo.
Great to see you guys. मतलब आप दोनों कॉलेज वाले एक साथ ना long time, very good. And very wonderful session, very knowledgeable. I had personally, this is the first time it was just I'm attending this session and found it very well, and a very knowledgeable session. There is some flexibility where you can share your views and take feedback from senior guys, and the versatility is here. It is very organic kind of culture. Good, Palak, and thanks a lot to arranging this kind of session.
No, I think I also appreciate this, and I think it's a very good interactive session. Generally, it's a one-sided talk most platforms provide, and I think Crackit is doing wonderful in bringing the voice of the audience and questions out, and very engaging. I loved it. Totally loved it. Palak and Debo.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Amrut.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wonderful session. Thank you, Palak, for the wonderful hosting.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All the best, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.